Alright, what is up everybody? It's Lids, and we are back for some more Pyre, and oh boy, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and granted, I have been mistaken before, we may be in for our final Liberation Rite, and what I expect means probably the end of the game for Pyre, which means we are slated to go up against, well, not any of our usual triumvirate opponents, but rather the true Nightwings and Orlek. Now, I'm nervous because we have gone against him once before and we did win. However, it was very close, if I remember correctly, or at the very least, I just remember them being very difficult, noticeably more difficult than many of the other opponents that we've gone up against. And it's been a while since then, so I can only assume that Orlek has ranked up, gotten more talismans, and will have plenty of tricks to throw at us this time. It will not be easy.
Foolish reader, your so-called friends, you are accomplice to their hateful plot. They are exploiting you. You shall never have your freedom.
Oh no. By dawn, you are already up and about, your troubled slumber. Black Wagon is prepared for its final voyage, all of Solium. No one speaks. Alright, well, don't have much choice. Head off. As you lift into the skies, the lone minstrel raises his voice, cutting through the somber moon. Reader, I am certain a certain old ballad comes to mind. I think it may befit the circumstance. Perhaps it may help to pass the time along our flight. Would you mind it very much if I were to play this song for the Nightwings? By all means, a song from the Lone Minstrel may help lift the spirits of your companions at this vital time. Or we could say, this, your final voyage toward a chance at freedom, is a time for quiet contemplation. Now, I think we go for the music. You urge the lone minstrel to play his ballad so that all among you might hear it. He begins without another word. Right. Here we go. So it's going to be tricky, like I was saying. We are up against Orlek. He's not going to make it easy for us. It's our final chance. And we're down several of our key contributors that we've had in prior rounds of Liberation Rites. So it's going to take a new kind of teamwork. Working in Volfred, working in Bertrude. I don't know if we're up for it. Give it a shot. Made? Oh, okay. I thought I cut them off. Oh, that was great. Wow. You touch down amid the ancient formations of Mount Elodium, make pilgrimage to the summit for one last time. There, one last liberation rite shall soon commence. There, one last exile shall regain his or her freedom. All others carry out their sentences here in the downside, remainder of their lives. I mean, I hope that our plan is such that, if successful, we would be able to break everyone free. I mean, that was the idea, right? That was the primary goal of doing that. At least for much of our group members, I would think. Maybe not Volfred, who might have had a little more illusions of grandeur trying to overthrow the Commonwealth government, but for most of us, I think, that's been secondary to just getting out of here And it seemed as though this plan was a way to help us do that, so I'm hopeful that even if we have a few people left over at the end, that there will still be a way for them to get back to the Commonwealth. In the Commonwealth, the plan of which you are a part shall either come to fruition or shall be suppressed. At the moment, we are looking at an 81% chance of success, which does sound pretty good. I mean, obviously it's not 100. I mean, most notably, we missed one opportunity to free someone. But, I mean, I'd have to imagine there is so much riding on this upcoming liberation, right, where if we are able to free the final person, then that number might shoot up considerably. If we lose and Orlek becomes free, I mean, I don't know if it's possible for that number to go down, but I would think that would have to be one of the best reasons for it to go down. So, yeah, we may not actually finish with 81% if we are unsuccessful. It might be lower than that. Need to be very, very careful here. Okay, so we have no one to talk to in our wagon. That means time to seek out the Crone Scribe's favor, Fulton Malik. After having landed, you join Ruki on an expedition to the monument of Molten Malik for what is likely to be the final time. So, this is really it, huh? For the line and all that? One last shot getting out of here. And then that's it? We don't make it. We're stuck. Forever. Wait, even if we do make it, those of us the reader doesn't pick, I guess we're all just going nowhere. Just go about our business here, then. I hope you scribes are hearing me, because that's not okay. I've been busting my chops all this time, thinking one day I'll get out of here. I just want to see my mom. Those stupid uncles, too. Hey, reader, if you're listening too, you better pick me, chum. Soon, he is finished. You return to the wagon in silence, feeling as Molten Malik shown you a favor. At dawn, you shall begin your last ascent. For now, your vocations may occupy what little time. Ruki gained +3 glory, which is the amount of damage he deals to the Pyre. That is a big deal, because no matter what we choose to do in terms of who we opt to try to free, I mean, Ruki is certainly going to be one of the 3 participants, at the very least. And that being the case, he's likely to continue to be our top scorer, so getting 3 extra damage for him is huge. So we'll accept the blessing. Now the question becomes, we can make for presence upgrade here for everyone, small boost. We can tutor someone here. Ruki is fully enlightened already, though, as is Tay, so that would mean that only Volfred or Bertrude would be the 2 people that might benefit from that. And is that, I mean, one of them has to participate in this, because, I mean, we may be relying heavily on Tay and Volfred, or Tay and Ruki, rather, but, that means either Volfred or Bertrude's gonna have to be that 3rd option, and are they gonna be a dead weight to the team, or are they gonna be able to contribute at least a little bit? Hard to say. Or, of course, we could forage for valuables, which I don't expect to find any amazing talismans at this stage, but it might be the difference between, I mean, even if we do find a talisman, being able to sell that and have the coins to purchase some of those one-right upgrades that we were talking about for a while that might give us just the kind of boost we need to push us over the edge and make this a little more feasible for us to pull out the victory. Let's take a quick look, though, at the Enlightenment, because as I was saying, these 2 are fully enlightened. Would you rank up? You would not rank up for Volfred if we were to tutor you. Bertrude wouldn't either. Okay, so I mean, that pretty much answers our question as to whether tutoring makes sense. Mentoring, rather. I'm not a huge fan of the studying in private at this stage because I'm not a huge fan of the presence. So I think we go for the foraging. Oh. I feel like we haven't had this option in the past of going either route. Since something Falcon Ron values here, I mean, that is basically what we were just saying was the goal of this. Otherwise, that's a source of enlightenment here. I mean, that is quite literally enlightenment for one of our characters, or even all of our characters, just seeing how, unfortunately, that's not terribly meaningful at this point in time, unless it's some exorbitant amount of enlightenment, but I doubt that would be the case. I think we go here. Oh. Huh? What? I'm confused. We opened our cargo. Huh? What just happened? I don't know what that was. Maybe we had the opportunity to sell something to Falcon Ron there. Maybe that's what that was all about. But I don't know. So we may have come up empty-handed there. I mean, presumably we did. But, unless I picked up something without realizing it. But, I mean, compared to the Enlightenment option, comparatively speaking, that's not much. Ooh. However, before we make it to Scribe's Gate, a messenger imp, news and rumors, the other side manages to track down your wagon in the great heights of Mount Elodie. The imp's latest information is about none other than Tizo, who he liberated at the fall of Solia. Everybody says he is the first creature of his kind to come to the Commonwealth. Yeah, I mean, we heard that he wasn't from the Commonwealth and that there were very few, if any, imps in the Commonwealth, but I was hoping that that wouldn't take away from his ability to be influential on that side and that people would be able to see that because he is descended directly from one of the scribes, that he is important and worth their attention. While this unique status brought Tizo no shortage of prestige, he nonetheless experienced difficulty acclimating to the new environment. It seems that he grew quite despondent. Uh-oh. Then at last, he managed to track down Volfred's agents, with whom he is working to find a means to bring more exiles home. That's the goal. Thus has the revolution grown stronger. He also left you a special verbal message via his most trusted messenger, who rears up and intones, "Tweety-hoo!" Tizo wants you to know that he is doing well, but misses you, and hopes to see you again. Oh, thanks, Tizo. You thank the messenger imp for the report, and ask that it relay your kind regards. Your companions soon begin to talk in turn. I'm so happy for him. I wish I could have had a friend like him when I was there. Very, very bright, that one. Would have served well as our familiar. Perhaps someday yet it shall be so. I think that's the most significant compliment Bertrand has ever given anyone. Except maybe Volfred. Why, that lucky little... Oh, okay, sure. I'm a little jealous of him, so...
You did it, little one. You'd scarce believe how long our Tizo toiled here in service of the Nightwing. He deserves his peace more than us all.
I shall look forward to our next reunion, Tizo. Perhaps when we are all back among the stars. The news of Tizo's adventures in the Commonwealth fills you and your fellow exiles with newfound resolve. Everyone gets a +1 hope in the next right. Very helpful. We are at the Scribe's Gate. Stand before the Scribe Gate, your companion. The Gate Guardian is there, as ever, but you sense something different in her. The exiles of the Nightwing. We shall not meet again after the coming night. Tariq and I. It shall be time we take our rest.
Salutiam, Ceres.
Greetings, Celeste. I would tell you that the Nightwings are prepared, though at this time I am uncertain anyone amongst us feels thus. We have a duty to uphold, Tariq.
Taruntadage.
And then what, Celeste? And then nothing. Not for the rights, or us. Not till the dawn of a new age. Now, Nightwings, step forward. Please state your names and what it is you seek whilst crossing Scribe's Gate. One by one, your fellow exiles approach her, now with sureness in their step. I can go first. Rookie Greentail's my name. Remember me? I just want to get out of here with all my chums and go see Mama back home, long as she knows I'm all right. Oh, my name is Tay, and I'm here because the scribes. This is the path that they have shown me and all of us. I like it when they call to me. We are called Big Bertrude. We seek to fulfill the plan of Sandalwood.
Bertrand, you aren't supposed to talk about that plan.
For we are fond of him and his beliefs. And then to go about our business.
My name is Volfred Sandalwood. I long as yet to see an age where freedom is one's birthright, and no longer are good people such as these forced to contend for it.
Finally, you step forth once more, you common wanderer who vowed to help his friends be free again, and who managed to come this far with this group. The Gate Guardian observes you from, then motions past the archway toward the summit. The 8 scribes bid the Nightwings welcome. Go forth with glory. Except for you, Tariq. Stay right there. I thought you said the rites are not yet ended. He looks to her, then over to the rest of you. Pardon me, everyone. I shall be there, stars align. The Gate Guardian and the Lone Minstrel remain together as the rest of you do.
Okay. Onward we go to the summit. One last. Will we still see Falcon Ron? Was that earlier visit supposed to be a replacement for this?
You have gained the summit of Mount Elodium the seventh time, final time, in which any one of you will have a chance to leave the downside.
I mean, when you phrase it like that, you make me really nervous. Make me feel like our plan has no chance of allowing anyone else to become free. I get that this is the last liberation rate, but still. And we do still have Falcon Ron. What? What did you say, Sandra?
Thank you for visiting on such short notice, reader. I understand you have important matters to attend to. So, let me be blunt. Please, listen for a moment. I know this whole affair is coming to an end. All of it. I sense the binds that formed the rites becoming weak. Which means soon, you will not need me anymore. Not that you have needed me at any point. Still, my services will not be of any further use. I would love to tell you that this means I shall be free from my eternal prison. For some of my beyonders shall be a release. My accomplices are bound by weaker words than those which have bound me. They shall fade away and finally rest. I, however, shall remain. She hesitates. Thus, I have a proposition for you. I do not know where you shall go from here, but I ask you to take me there, wherever it shall be. By that I mean, take this stone prison of mine, and keep it. Do not just leave it, as all your predecessors have, each time their stay among the Nightwings reached an end. Soon, the Beyonder Crystal shall serve no use at all, except to keep me trapped. I am content to remain thus, for I have little choice, but I would prefer to do so in your company. For I do enjoy your company, reader. This may not be much of a compliment. I assure you that I much prefer your company to an eternity of solitude. I have no wish to see you gain in years and to eventually decay, whilst I remain unchanging. But I should rather have more years whilst having contact. Even if those years are to be brief, they shall afford me many more which I might think back upon our times. Nor do I expect you to accommodate my needs, for I am well aware I have my limits in accommodating yours. That is to say, I wish you to go forth after this night and live your life however you see fit. For your own sake, may all this Bright's business enrich your coming days somehow. And in considering that life after this night, you think that there may be a place in it for me, however small, then, once again, I simply ask that you take me along. That way, should you ever wish to visit me again sometime, you could. And I would like to have that as an option, more than not. My request here is a selfish one, for there is little I can offer in exchange, other than what little companionship is worth. Perhaps I could lull you to sleep once in a while. Who knows? You could always try to sell the Beyonder Crystal for a reasonable sum somewhere, something to that end. There must be someone out there with an interest in this thing. So then, you have heard my sad little proposition. What do you say?
Sandra wishes for you to claim the Beyonder Crystal for yourself. We can agree and do it. Why not? Sandra has proved to be a kindred spirit. You would rather not part ways with her. Or we can decline with all respect. Beyonder Crystal is not your property, nor is Sandra's present or penance your responsibility. Or presence, for that matter. I think we agree. There's no reason not to, right?
You grasp the Beyonder Crystal and set it into the folds of your clothing. Sandra senses this and makes a sound, as though surprised. Thank you, reader. She is at a loss for a moment. Then, let us go then, from this place. Go and face your last remaining adversaries. May you crush them under your heel and achieve the outcome which you seek. I believe you shall prevail.
Thanks, Sandra. She disappears into the stone for now. You took the Beyonder Crystal with you. We'll keep it with us. Oh. Okay. That very sudden change in music startled me big time. There's like a knock of wood type of sound. It made me think that someone was about to come into the wagon and that Orlek was going to be like, oh, hey guys, what's up? We're going right now and prepare to lose. I suppose maybe isn't too far from the truth, but at least we have a little bit more time there, I would think, unless there are more surprises. So, she did make mention of potentially selling said Beyonder Crystal to someone who might find it of value. And, I mean, you know who that might be. We're about to visit him.
Hey, guys. I guess you probably heard the big news, huh? Yeah, well, I'm going out of business here, I guess. Just hasn't been the same, you know? What with stars fading all out and stuff. Anyways, just wanted to say, you guys are great, and sure am gonna miss having you guys as customers and all that. But I got some good news though, too. All my stuff, it's all on sale now, and I will throw a little extra there. Just for you, okay? So, enjoy, and maybe I'll be seeing you guys around, okay? Henceforth, all of Falcon Ron's goods are 5% off. Great. Thanks, Falcon Ron. Really owe you one. Okay, so let's sell him our... What? When did we get that? Is that the thing that we found in that brief little search for something valuable and I just didn't realize it? Because, I mean, it's not a downberry. I thought it was downberry. But it is far, far more valuable than that. Okay, that's a pleasant surprise, I suppose. Okay, and now what we have is actually a relatively large sum of coins. So much so that we could afford all of these one right boosts. I wouldn't be able to afford any of the permanent ones after that, but I'm not sure that matters all that much. Wow, Mound of Stardust gives a talisman plus 20. So basically instantly fully upgraded talisman. We don't need that at the moment, but it is funny to see that that is at least an option. Okay, so I think what we do here is quite simple. We just pick up all these. And apparently we are now a big spender. Thanks, Falcon Ron. Okay, I'm not sure with 28 we can do anything at this point that is all that meaningful. Maybe there's a talisman, like that one's kinda cheap. Could afford this one, but it's not really doing us any good at this point. Could afford this one, but again, not... I mean, maybe to make a stronger case for that being a viable option, but I still think that is probably not terribly useful. So I think this is it, and we did get several rounds of one right boosts, so I think that will be very helpful. Thanks, guys. Good luck in that thing you're going through tonight. I didn't catch what those things there were. Probably pages in the book, right? Hey, slug markets. Getting this information now? That was our last opportunity to do any business with Falcon Ron. Now you're telling us? There are natives in this land, some capacity for thought, oddly keen instinct for the mercantile. Suspicious creatures, but not disagreeable entirely. From time to time, we make exchange with them. Lust for coins, for the imperial soul, though why, they do not say. We speculate it is a delicacy. It serves us little purpose here, whilst their slug market wares are sometimes valuable. The creatures appear drawn to places where the heavens shine the brightest, perhaps because they know we are as well. What they want exactly is unclear. We taught them of our lands, yet they remain preoccupied with simpler things. It's okay, Falcon. That's fine. Alright, and indigenous imps. Special mention must be given to the downside's most prolific native creature, which we call imp. With all respects to our comrade Haoub, an imp himself possessing of extraordinary intellect, most imps are driven by the simplest impulses: eat, drink, procreate, move, survive. These creatures, then, are symbols of this place. They are far more resilient than it seems. Though wild by their nature, they, like all of us, can learn. Haoub insists that imps are willing to be put to work. Like other aspects of the downside, they wish more than to exist, but to exist with purpose. That,
maybe the last page we have in Book of Rites in all. Because I believe now it is time to commence the final liberation rite. It's your final opportunity to liberate one of your fellow exiles and help fulfill Wolfred's plan. Before we do that, I'm going to do one thing that we always forget to do, and that is check our probability of success. Let's confirm we have 81% at the moment. And the last remaining star shall soon be gone. We have this one last chance to get one of us out. May the scribes be merciful to us all. You might have read that earlier. But okay, so we're sitting on 81%. Of course, we want to find a way to improve our probability of the plan succeeding as possible, and much as possible. And so we have Ruki, Tay, and Wolfred, I think, are the 3 people who will be eligible to be set free. And I didn't think it would happen, but Wolfred, I mean, if in fact that is an option to try to liberate him, then I would think that that would mean he would far and away be the most impactful for our plan. So it makes me nervous, but I think we're gonna try to make him our guy. You have gained the summit of Mount Elodium, the 7th. Very few stars remain above. Light your way as you await the commencement of the final liberation. The lone minstrel finds you clutching the Book of Rites, seeking there, perhaps, some bit of wisdom that has eluded you thus far. Reader, we may not have a chance to speak again. I may have to go. I wish to say that I'm grateful for having made your acquaintance, and I shall remember your fondness. I shall remember you with fondness. I wish you well, this night and always. Go forth, glory. Then he looks up and he extends his hand in friendship. Clasp it. You see, Ruki has joined you. All of your companions are there with him. In fact, you got this, chum. You got this far. No way this is any tougher than what it took to get back here. Oh, hi, mister. The others? They said they wanted me to join them and come talk to you, so here I am. The scribes are watching. Reading. Thou art both wiser and less irritating than most others of thy kind. Oh, why, thank you, Bertrude. We have learned something from thee, and we are grateful.
It is strange for me to say, given the circumstances of our meeting, reader, but it has truly been a pleasure. Onward now, let us achieve our plan. You look upon your fellow exiles, your companions, with whom you have withstood the downside, and with whom you shall now conduct this final rite.
Begging your pardon, but my time has come. We shall see each other soon.
Thank you, lone minstrel. He departs. After this night, the outcome of Wolfred's plan, which all have been a part, shall be decided, one way or another. For now, all you can do is strive to prevail against your final adversaries, so that one last companion may go free. Rise to join your fellow exiles as the last remaining stars ignite. The final liberation rite of this age now commence. Stand together. And I'm not so inclined to invoke any of the Titan stars now. We're going straight into this one. Already have so much on the line. No need for that stuff. Oralek, I'm sure, has enough challenges in store for us already.
For one last time, upon the fall of Solium, dear reader, hear me for one last time. For soon The few remaining stars shall fade away, leaving you stranded there for your remaining days in that forsaken land where you deserve to be.
Oh.
The rabble that you roused here in the Commonwealth shall be put down. The exiles whom you liberated all shall fall in line. But first, let us get on with this last liberation rite.
We'll see if we can do anything about that.
None other than yourselves. Each
True
so unlike
Nightwings.
the glorious Nightwings of yore. 'Tis a shame that one of you shall soon be free, for you deserve each other.
In that way, you may be right. The pyres burn, and each of the triumvirates is present and prepared. Before the lone minstrel can concur, as per the custom.
Uh-oh. Not another word. Here's Orlek. Now, okay. Before we start all this, I just want to say, Orlek successfully conducted the liberation rite years ago. And then, obviously, didn't get set free because of the odd circumstances that we have discussed in the past, in which he was tossed down the side of the mountain. But what's to stop him from just running up and getting his freedom right now? Like, without the rite? Because I would think that he has already earned his freedom. Is there any limit in terms of how long that offer stands? I don't know.
The demon Orlek slowly raises his clawed fingers to his mask.
The false Nightwings have arrived at last. Long have I awaited this. My freedom once was stolen from me. Then I was cheated of it, here, on this mountaintop.
I don't know, man. You might be able to just go right now and be free. I mean, granted, we probably don't want him to do that for the purpose of our plan. He might do things to sabotage it, but still.
You may now attempt to take it from me once more.
He stands there for a moment, silent. Then, Orlek dons his mask and stands prepared.
May these damned rites cease forever for the misery which they caused.
Hey, whoa, plus 40 life, based on his talisman, it appears. Nightwings! We shall not meet again after tonight, for the cycle of the rites is all but ended. Thus, I would have your decision. On whose behalf shall you conduct this final liberation rite? The one whom you anoint, or else the exile Orlek shall be returned. Godspeed, reader. You know what it is at stake better than I. I have utmost faith in you to make the best decision and conduct this rite with glory. Nightwings! The stars' remaining light grows dim. Your decision, please. It is time now to choose who, if anyone among you, shall go free this one last time. The rest of you shall remain in the downside to the end of your days. One by one, you meet the gazes of each of your fellow exiles. Wolfred. Hey. Gertrude. Ruki. Your fellow exiles. Your companions. Your friends. Together, you've come this far. But now, the downside and the rights conspire to tear your group apart. Disrupt your plan. I assume it's still 81%? Okay, just making sure. Are you prepared to choose this one last time? Yes, but there's no turning back. The fate of your friends and the Commonwealth may hinge on the decision you are about to make. Or no, the pressure is too great. It seems both cruel and unfair not to make such a decision. Is there another way? Of course, we have to do it. but with a glance, to reassure fellow exiles, know what to do.
One final
Choose who will be free. Okay, well, let's take a quick look.
for the rest of you.
Take a quick look over here. What? At Orlek and crew, because he has a rank 40 talisman, totally unfair, if I do say so myself. This is the one that I was referring to earlier that is giving him plus 40 life on his Pyre, which is a lot. Not to mention, last time we did a liberation rite, the scribes came in and restored Manly's Pyre well into the fight, well into the Pyre, or right, I should say. So, I mean, if there's that again, then we're gonna have to score 200 against him to finally deplete his Pyre, but we'll see. So, he has 20 glory, apparently is actually less than he would normally have. His 20 quickness, which is actually very quick for a demon. So that is notable because, well, typically the quick guys don't score very much when they, or don't deal a lot of damage when they score, where Orlek is arguably the only one that bucks that trend. His hope is a little bit low, so if we do manage to banish him, then we can buy ourselves a little bit of time. His presence is, yeah, overwhelming is probably a good way to describe that. That is ginormous. I mean, it doesn't look huge here, but, I mean, I'm sure we'll see once we actually get out there that that is going to be very hard to run around him. Alright, but his skills. For 7 seconds, after saluting his adversaries, Orlek deals an additional 10 damage to the adversary's Pyre, so that 20 we were talking about before, it can go up to 30. After using his rush to lunge forward, Orlek can rush again right away. We've seen this with many other demons, okay? That's his sprint, basically. When landing from a jump, Orlek briefly stuns nearby adversaries, making them drop the orb. And Orlek can banish adversaries by flinging the orb into them. We haven't seen many people use this skill often, or all that aggressively. So that might be something that we get our first real look at here, which would be a little scary because we haven't had much time to strategize around that. And the talisman we've already talked about. Then he has this person helping him out, who is even faster than him. Has comparatively low presence, but otherwise their stats are quite good. So that's a little bit daunting. And after being banished, they have a chance of returning immediately. So that hope stat may be effectively even higher than what we see there. So faster flinging the orb. The charge up time before a cast is greatly reduced. They sprint and jump without using stamina when they have the orb. And the charge up time before jumps and sprints are virtually eliminated. That is basically almost identical, in fact, might be identical to what we have for Tay. Then we have an imp who is comparatively slow, does have a quickness talisman, so it would be even slower than that. But I would say this is probably the weakest link of their team. Not fully enlightened, so only 3 skills. While fluttering or zipping, they move faster than usual, so that 12 is a little misleading. But after imploding, they return much more quickly, and their implode has a much wider area, so that presence is also a little misleading as well. And, yeah, the quickness talisman. Okay, so I mean, Orlek is, of course, going to be the primary person that we are most concerned about, especially since, under some circumstances, he could actually deal 30 damage. 7 seconds, that's such a huge amount of time after saluting where he can still get that bonus damage. A little nervous about the Savage, too. I'm not as nervous about the Imp. And so as for who we pick to liberate, I was alluding to it before. I think the answer is Volfred, because, I mean, either Volfred or Bertrude has to participate. Bertrude is unworthy. And, so, if he's gonna be there, we might as well make him eligible, make him be the one that we're trying to free, because, presumably, he would be the most likely to drastically increase the chances of our plan succeeding should he become free. I think we go there.
Long have I dreamt that I might someday see this plan of ours come to fruition. I promise you that I shall make the most of it if we are to prevail.
Your choice is cast. As for your other companions, you sense a clarity of thought and purpose in each of them. They stand ready to support Volfred, as well as you.
Who shall lend him support?
Okay, so I believe we have the right talismans on everyone else as well. I mean, Volfred, we picked his legendary talisman, which gives him greater dashing distance. So I think that is a good thing to have for him because he is slow, and that helps cover for that a little bit. So we have Tay and Ruki will be the other people. I mean, not really any doubt about that. Those two have been our primary contributors of the people that are remaining here. Question is recover 50% of the damage dealt versus recovering 10. Oh, actually, doesn't Ruki have 5 additional damage? Ruki actually would be better with this one because he deals 23 damage now as opposed to 20 that Tay deals. So I think we choose Tay next, and next will be Ruki.
Blessed are the scribes who grant to me and all of us this final chance that we might free our dear friend, Volfred.
And lastly, we have Ruki. Okay. Damn right, chum! Now let's get Volfred out of here.
If that is all, then.
Those are to be my adversaries, then. And who is it, I wonder, who asserts his will over that group?
You sense Orlek searching for you, almost reaching out to you.
You, the shadow of the false knight. They are nothing to me. You, who would relinquish your own liberty for sake of them? Strange. It is fitting, then, that I should have to face one such as you.
Then Orlek stands at the ready, signaling his 2 allies to do the same.
By the light of dawn, the cycle of the rites shall cease. Let us see if we can finish this ordeal before that time.
The sky above begins to shudder. The final liberation rite is about to commence. Tariq! I am prepared, Celeste. Then, let our song this evening shake the stars themselves. Aye, Celeste. Let us make sure of it. Here we go. That wasn't where I wanted that to go. Oh, that was also very silly of me. I saw what you were trying to do there. Ooh, nearly. Ooh, I thought I could zoom ahead there. I know your ability. I know you do that. No! Ah! His jump knocked me back. That wasn't good. Can't stop me, though. We do start with an advantage, but we did get a little bit of life back there.
The sky rains ash. Soon shall your pyre's own mingle with them.
Just then, the skies above begin to rain down fire, the final throes of the cycle of the rites and the ending of the age. What? Excuse me? snuck by there. You're lucky. You wear the raiments once again.
I could not simply stand by and do nothing, Orlek.
Yet, that is what you did. When last we stood together on this blasted mountain, I fell. You simply stood.
Orlek, what shall it take for you to be convinced I took no part in your betrayal?
Also, noticing that things are shaking right and left here every once in a while, Orlek seems to consider the question, only for a moment. Give me my damn freedom. Let me prevail, here and now.
Would you promise to uphold our plan to bring about a better Commonwealth?
No, I make no promises. I owe you nothing.
And I am sorry, Orlek. My love of country comes before all else. More than your freedom and our friendship is at stake.
Your love be damned, Bullfriend. Let us stand as adversaries then. Gotcha. We need a little bit of the juice. There we go.
I wonder shall the nightwings press their luck?
Gotcha. What? What was that?
A rather cunning
That was not good. Got multiple people in one round there. Man, so much for my strategy here.
banishment.
Ooh, I ran straight into that. Also not what I meant to do. He drops the orb and then immediately does a cast. It's his strategy. Oh, that was so bad. So bad there. That was silly.
You seem unable to stop these people. How comical.
Pass it. Ooh, I meant to jump. Oh no, that's not good. That's not good. That's very much not good. All of you. You shall rot here. You shall rot as I have all these many years. You, false Nightwings, who would deny me once again my rightful liberty. You, who deny that liberty to all the triumvirates you face and vanquish under the guise of the traditions of those blasted scribes. Come, let us continue with this glorious affair.
How here's changed to that Warlick. Grown old and bitter though these many years.
Oh, quick implosion there. 1 for 1. Not sure what happened there. Orb is back here? Since when? Ooh, that still didn't get you either? Ah! 1 for 1, not quite. It's not good enough. Ah, man! They're really good at flinging the orb at the last second to save their friends. Or to turn themselves from a vulnerable character to a character with the ability to take you out with a banishment. So the false Nightwings are bare their fangs at last. But that cannot be your finest effort. You think you deserve your freedom more than I? Then fight for it, damn you. I did not realize I still had that. go, and we get some of our life back, which is key. Uh-oh, not fast enough. Or maybe we are. It's close. Orlek stands, breathing heavily. He looks back on the thin lick of flame that is his smoldering pyre, before turning his attention back to your triumvirate. Hey, but no news as to what that means. Whew, I should have jumped there. I really need someone to pass this to. Ooh, I tried charging up the jump, but I wasn't fast enough. See that coming? No! I don't know how much we have anymore. Okay. Gotcha. Oh, I wasn't sure if I'd have the stamina left to jump. Likewise. Jumped in. And we did it. That was it. The final one.
Nightwings proved their worth.
Wow. That was close.
Adversaries they defeated utterly.
Only because we regained life when we scored. We would have lost were it not for that.
The scribes have chosen.
Praise the scribes. We've done it.
Man. If you had told me earlier that we would find a way to liberate Volfred, I would not have believed you. Whether because of his lack of enlightenment relative to the other scribes, or because we've struggled so much to use him in the rites. But somehow, some way, we found a way. You look upon Volfred, for what you expect shall be the last time you see each other. Any moment now, the Shimmer Pool shall engulf him. Any moment now, he shall return to glory, join his agents in the Commonwealth to help achieve the plan. Still is showing 81. I'm assuming that will update. Any moment now, the cycle of the rites shall end until at least the dawn of a new age. Any moment now. Uh-oh. I'm thinking something may have gone amiss here.
And thus the scribes have chosen. And thus the scribes have chosen. And thus the scribes have chosen.
Uh-oh.
No. Nightwings. Reader. What have you done?
I don't know. What have we done?
Hold. There's something wrong.
Each prior time, upon the fall of Solium, the Shimmer Pool has opened, following the Liberation Rite, and taken in whichever exile prevailed. But now, all is still, and the light of the stars above has all but died. You sense a growing fear that it is already too late, that the Shimmer Pool shall not reveal itself again. Orlek approaches, his head bowed. The 8 scribes saved their greatest treachery last. Then, something else catches his notice. Wait. A sudden rush of starlight cascades through the stillness of the summit. I don't know, I'm not convinced that Volfred is the one going through. It may still be Orlek. I don't know if that red light there is any indication either. The Shimmer Pool has appeared again. Different somehow, but open. Volfred looks upon it, but it does not engulf him, or at least not yet. Seems I was mistaken then. The 8 scribes. This is not their greatest treachery. It is their greatest jest. The Shimmer Pool is flung wide open. It seems that all are worthy now of freedom. I hope so. Ooh, could it have worked? Could this be it? Orlek strides toward the Shimmer Pool, but halts Orlek. Orlek glances over at the lone minstrel, almost in surprise. The Shimmer Pool has lost most of its strength. You step inside, and you shall surely drown. Of that, I can assure you. He laughs to himself at this. Then, we have all been cheated.
No. The Shimmer Pool is revealed, and one of you may still return, as planned. But, as for who returns, someone shall have to choose. Here, the last light of the stars is extinguished, and the rites cease to be. This is the final trial of the scribes.
Final trial of the scribes. Then, our confrontation, liberation rite, it all was meaningless.
No. The victor of the confrontation is to be the one to make the choice among those closest to the scribes. Either the anointed, or he who anointed them.
So then, the choice is mine to make. My freedom weighed against the readers. Is that it?
Aye. It shall be either you, the reader, or...
It shall be either or.
Wolfred, please, make your decision quickly, lest it shall be forfeit. I do not know for how much longer the light of the stars shall offer you this gift.
A snap decision then. Fine. I have it made. Reader, my boy, this chance at freedom that we earned, it's yours. Take it now, and make good use of it for you and all of us.
Wolfred wishes to give up his freedom so that you may regain yours. Very well. Reader, sir, the choice which Wolfred made, or rather, the choice which he gave, it is now yours to make instead.
This choice, it may keep bouncing back and forth like this? Absurd.
It may, until such a time as one of you is willing to accept the burden and the outcome of the choice. That is the trial, and I fear that there is little time remaining now.
Reader, if you and your companion are too cordial to each other to accept that freedom, either one of you, then I shall gladly take it. Freedom ought to be more than some flirtatious trivial exchange.
Reader, what is your will? Who shall finally go free? Choose yourself. This is your chance, and Wolfred wished that you should take it. Choose Wolfred. Your intention this night was for him to return to glory, and it shall be done. Or choose Orlek. He earned his rightful freedom long ago. He deserves his justice.
I mean, my goal still remains. I may not fully understand the plan in its entirety, but I would like to believe that if we are to free Wolfred, he still stands the greatest chance of helping us to achieve our plan, and that if that plan is successful, my hope is that everyone will be free, one way or another, including ourselves, in which case I think Wolfred does something in the Commonwealth that we ourselves cannot do. I mean, what are we? We are just a reader. Wolfred not only is a reader, like us, he also has all the influence of having run this plan from the beginning. So I think, on the assumption that the plan, if successful, would in fact bring everyone their freedom, then this is the way to go. So I think we take this. You are decided. You have chosen Wolfred. He looks at you with some astonishment. Wolfred, sir, do you accept the leader's choice, or shall you make another? Now, my worry is that, sort of like what Orlek was alluding to, that if both of us, Wolfred and ourselves, try passing back and forth who gets to go free and we're indecisive, that Orlek might seize this opportunity and just jump right in, and he gets it instead of either of us, in which case that is presumably the worst out of those three outcomes.
Yes, I accept the reader's choice in this. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, my boy. And I'm afraid that I don't know what else to say.
Then it is done. You see a look of genuine surprise flash across Wolfred's face, and then he is gone. You gave a chance at freedom, so that Wolfred may yet have his. May he return in glory.
Godspeed, Wolfred Sandalwood.
I didn't think it would happen.
By the scribes,
I didn't think we would be able to do it.
no stars remain aloft.
That is the last round.
Cycle of the rites. It is finished. The Commonwealth. What shall become of it? What shall become of us? Nightwings. The opportunity to gain your freedom from the downside. Was it not enough?
Following Wolfred? That night, the exiled Wolfred returned to the Commonwealth. Was to be the last. The stars had faded, and the cycle of the rites had run its course. He found the Commonwealth in great upheaval. Spurred by the efforts of 5 liberated exiles, Wolfred Sandalwood's revolutionary plan had incited the masses. These exiles and the starless sky portended the turn of the scribes. The people surged into the streets, shoulder to shoulder. Led by the 5 exiles, their voices shook the heavens. The leadership of the Commonwealth panicked. No blood was shed that night. By dawn, it's over. The leaders of the Commonwealth had cast themselves back into exile or joined in this new cause. Thus, in its 838th year, the Commonwealth had fallen. The new Saurian Union declared its sovereignty in the next year. Among the changes its elected leaders ushered in, they vowed never to cast their people into exile. And they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding literacy. Today, we still remember all of this. And we remember the exiles of the downside, whose deeds led to the dawning of our age, whether they returned or not. We see people who we freed wearing white, whereas the people that we did not free are wearing their usual blue. And it looks like we can talk to people. So let's see. Choose someone to learn what became of them since last you met. Okay, I think it's only fair to go in order, to the extent that I can remember, in which we freed people.
maybe the order in which we met people, but let's go order in which we freed people, because that's more or less the order in which we last saw them. So Jodariel first in that case. After her liberation, Jodariel soon became an icon of the movement that led the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Saurian Union. Her horns and stern countenance inspired people to believe that she was solely a mule reborn. She became a great, if reluctant, leader. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodariel's seasoned expertise often came into play, both in matters of security and of state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close to Hedwyn all through this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. She often had to stop herself from fearing for Tay, whom she had tried to look after as much as possible on the downside. Soon, she would reassure herself Tay was very capable of surviving on her own, and in fact, she was not mistaken. She continued training on her own, a regiment that grew stricter each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She would always remember her days among the Nightwing, and with fondness, for the most part. Alright, there's Jodariel. Next would be Hedwyn, the first person that met us in the downside. After his liberation, Hedwyn was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth, and was vital to the outcome of the plan. And so these were the two people who we sent first, thinking that they would have, maybe besides Volfred, the greatest chance of helping us succeed. The peaceful outcome of the scribe's return was attributed to several key factors. One of them was the underlying ambition of the plan itself, the scribe's return. Inspired by the liberated exiles, the people of the Commonwealth demanded new leadership. Cast yourselves down, cast yourselves down. Chant from the scribe's return. Another was Hedwyn's visibility among the people in the streets. Identified to be a liberated exile, he was believed to be Gol Golothanian, reborn. It seems like that's the theme here, is that people that we freed, they took on a new life in the Commonwealth and in many ways embodied the scribes. More importantly, however, was that one of the winged harps of the Highwing remnants accompanied him. She was later identified as Vikani Shang, a harp whom Hedwyn cared deeply. They were separated from when Hedwyn was exiled. They were able to meet up, get back together. Their bond was symbolic of what was at stake that night, proved vital to the peace that followed. That was part of my hope, was that his connection to the harps might bridge an alliance, might form an alliance between two groups that were previously bitter enemies, and that would prove very helpful in our attempt to overthrow the government, I guess you could say, and succeed in our plan. In all his days as a leader of the Saurian Union, Hedwyn oft confided in his friend, Jodariel. And yeah, I think it is key that we were able to get both of them back there as soon as possible together. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Jodariel, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again, together. He had broken that vow, for in the end, not all of them were able to return. Terrible guilt over this darkened his mood for a time. So, I mean, I know initially we weren't able to get everyone back, and I do still see, of course, that people that we did not free still have their old raiments on. But I would hope that with the new government, there was a way to get everyone back to the Commonwealth. Maybe that's next. However, the others, whom he still knew, lifted his spirits, much like he had often lifted theirs. All of the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not all able to remain in contact thus, Edwin thought of each of them often, and so in turn did they think of him. Edwin? Okay, next, I think, was Tamitha. After regaining her freedom, Tamitha Thane found herself in a difficult position. Having once betrayed her people of the Highwing Remnants, she knew that she would not be welcome in her native home. She did not trust the Commonwealth either. Instead, she found her place among Volfred Sandalwood's agents, who were busy doing their part to fulfill the plan. As it turned out, the plan was a success. Tamitha Thane stood shoulder to shoulder with her other fellow former exiles, and truly, they were a sight to behold. A disturbing rumor later spread that night the Highwing Remnants were slated to mount an assault, which, for some reason, never came to pass. Tamitha denied any knowledge or involvement. Afterward, Tamitha played an active part in negotiating terms between the Highwing Remnants and the new nation that would become our Saurian Union. Her previous attempt at something of the sort led to her exile. She must have felt some satisfaction to succeed this time around. One day, Tamitha received an invitation to return to the Highwing Remnants, where she was to be fully pardoned. That was where she ran into her blood sister Tamitha for the first time since their exile. I was wondering how that might play out that both of them became free. Their reunion was not as amicable as Tamitha might have hoped, and Tamitha, still resentful of their history together, turned violent. Tamitha would later brush aside the incident, though always had an injury to show for it. Yet, from that point on, the Blood Sisters were back on speaking terms. At least, for the most part. Later, when asked, Tamitha Thane admitted she felt as though she had no home to call her own. This was during an interview conducted amid an extensive trip abroad, where she had traveled thousands of leagues beyond the bounds of the Saurian Union. Tamitha continued to journey thus, citing that it reminded her of when she was younger and could fly unfettered. Okay, so that was similarly part of our goal of liberating Tamitha, was the hope of, even more so than with Hedwyn, finding the opportunity to unravel, well, take away some of the tension between the Highwing Remnants and the Commonwealth, and hopefully that would also make it so that people were taking our plan a little more seriously, our people a little more seriously. Okay, after that, I mean, technically, was none other than Tamitha. I mean, it's a little bit different going over to a former adversary, but we're going in order. That is technically true. As soon as possible, after Tamitha Thane earned back her liberty, she rejoined her sisters of the Highwing Remnants in the mountain north of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth believed that someone such as she could be rehabilitated through years spent in exile. Instead, her hatred for her ancient enemies only intensified. On the night of the Scribe's return, the Highwing Remnants were poised to strike the Commonwealth in a decisive blow. They had received credible intelligence about the expected position of Commonwealth leadership, and of the specific weaknesses in the blood border defenses anticipated that night. After a surgical procedure, Tamitha could fly again, almost as well as prior to her exile. She insisted on spearheading the attack with a squadron of the Harp's finest. However,
Just as Tamitha's squadron prepared to crash down upon its foes, she received a signal to belay the attack order and return to the mountains. It appeared that the people of the Commonwealth were on the verge of achieving what the Highwing remnants were never able to accomplish. Ever dutiful, Tamitha obliged. Her sense of duty took priority above all else. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Tamitha attended a debriefing in which her blood sister, Pamitha, was also in attendance. Tamitha was very skeptical that Pamitha could have played a beneficial role in the preceding events and lashed out at her. Pamitha made no attempt to elude the attack and was struck full on. This cost Pamitha the use of her right wing, yet after she recovered, she shrugged the incident aside and said maybe they would call it even now. From that point on, the Blood Sisters kept a formal distance, but were cordial with each other. After the rise of the Saurian Union, Tamitha Thane continued to serve as flight tactician and remained respected and feared even among her kind. However, without a war to wage, she grew more distant even than usual. Those closest to her surmised that her inability to reconcile with her blood sister was at the heart of this, though for her part, Tamitha never once admitted to any such weaknesses.
So there was some question, I said this long ago, as to whether there was still a little bit more for the two of them to resolve before having Pamitha earn her freedom, and then, of course, ultimately, Tamitha soon after, even if that wasn't intended. And it does appear as though, ideally, we would have allowed them to see each other one more time in the downside before separating the two of them. Even if they did ultimately get back together in the Commonwealth. Okay. There is Pamitha and Tamitha. Next would be Sir Gilman, I believe. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom: his honor. Gilman relinquished his knighthood and declined an opportunity to serve as captain on the Blood Border. He was not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a need for him to once again make use of his military training. Thankfully, however, the scribe's return ended peacefully. Gilman was on edge throughout that night, expecting violence to erupt at any moment. But the moment never came. When the matter was last put to rest, then Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Something tells me that may not have lasted long. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstance, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly, though never found as skilled and motivating a partner as his fleet-footed friend, Brookie Greentail, whom he remembered fondly. Oh. He was always grateful for having studied under the reader of the Nightwings, without whom he would never have completed his penance. So that sounds like, yes, we did successfully sort things out with him. Which we anticipated. It seemed as though that was the case. Because of this, and perhaps because they were on opposite sides of the world now, Gilman dedicated his life to him. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leader was his first step toward gaining a bit of self-respect. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion, and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Aww. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won,
but a contract with oneself to be renewed each day. There's Sir Gilman.
And that is, yes, I guess you could say that as much as anticipated with him.
Next, we have Tizo. The imp called Tizo was the first of his kind to achieve liberty through the rites. While he was not the only imp trained in the ways of the scribes, imps are native to the downside, and thus care not for traveling abroad. This made them useful to triumvirates. Yet Tizo had a different calling, and the Nightwings believed that he too would play a key part in Volfred Sandalwood's plan. I am curious what it says now. Volfred's ambitious plan to spark a revolution in the Commonwealth as peacefully as possible. We shall stand together, shoulder to shoulder, as the scribes themselves once stood.
No percentage there. I mean, it appears as though we did succeed.
During the night of the scribes' return, it stood out to the populace as something of a miracle. They had only heard of downside imps before, and legends of Aoud the Swallow. Afterwards, he became something of an icon, representing both the fall of the Commonwealth and the beginning of a new era. Sandalwood sometimes called for his assistance, and Tizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the lone minstrel. Tizo often missed his interactions with the reader of the Nightwings. They had quickly built a rapport back in the downside, and Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time conducting the rites alongside the Nightwings, who made such sacrifices for him. Other than that, Tizo was diligent about his role as something of a living artifact, and helped interpret for the messenger imps that relayed news to and from the downside. Despite having gained significant celebrity, he never let it go to his head. Oh, good job, Tizo. Although, he did take full advantage of his access to the Saurian Union's fishing industry.
Did anticipate that one. He did say that he would eat boatloads of fish. Okay, and I think that is, for the most part, what we were hoping would happen with Tizo, given how he had that history, that bloodline that dated all the way back to the scribes. Alright, and next, we can roll up and down a little bit. Okay, so Sandalwood would be next. When Volfred Sandalwood regained his freedom, he knew that his work had only just begun. The nation that had exiled him to life in the downside now prepared to honor him. He was not interested in such ceremony, nor in freedom on the Commonwealth's own terms. He soon rejoined his agents, with whom he had been coordinating for years, slowly, carefully, preparing for a night that soon would come. For Sandalwood and his loyalists and sympathizers, true freedom was at stake. Not just theirs, but that of everyone living under the Commonwealth. I mean, the Commonwealth, yes, but it does seem as though freedom is only coming to those in the Commonwealth. And, I mean, we haven't talked to anyone who we haven't liberated yet, but it seems as though they may have been stuck in the downside, so we'll have to see. He hoped to gather liberated exiles, representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. Or maybe we can hear more about the details of the plan that he didn't tell us. So this is... I suppose he may not have explicitly told us this, but makes sense given the members of the Nightwings, how we had one person for each of the masks, so that makes sense. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites having ended sooner than expected, this optimal scenario became impossible. Sandalwood did not relent, and prepared to execute his plan, imperfect though it was. I mean, I assume that it is not possible to liberate everyone. I mean, that there is no way to have a quote-unquote perfect plan. Of course, we did fail to liberate Sir Gilman the first time round. That's when Tamitha became free. But even then, it sounds like, this is mostly tied to the stars fading before we had the chance to potentially free everyone. Because even if we had successfully freed Sir Gilman the first time, yeah, we would have gotten one more person into the Commonwealth, but still wouldn't have had enough time to get everyone. On the night of the scribe's return, he stood as one of the 5 former exiles of the Nightwings, and their voices echoed together through the streets. We set free 6 people, I thought. Weren't there 7 liberation rites? One of which was unsuccessful because Tamitha became free. But what, Jodariel, Hedwyn, Tamitha, Gilman, Tizo, Fulfred. 6. So that is confusing me how, on a couple of occasions, it seems to have said 5 rather than 6. These former exiles, who ought to have disappeared into the ranks of the Commonwealth's own leadership, now stood united with its people, and poured from their homes in solidarity. It was imperative to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature. And that was one of the questions that we had. It seemed that Sandra was suggesting that it might be more violent than Volfred was letting us think. An overwhelming show of popular support would be more than enough. Ensuring this was his priority that night, and in the end, the result was self-evident. Plan's goal had been achieved. Fantastic. Sandalwood's work, far from over still. He labored ceaselessly with representatives from across the population to restore a sense of stability. This transitional period had its troubles, though none that were not too quickly solved. Such was the will and spirit of the people. They understood their freedom carried new responsibility. So yeah, I think this is part of the key of having freed Volfred was, sure, the plan might have succeeded, even without him, but with him having such a deep understanding of how exactly it might play out, he would have been the one most prepared to help that transition that I don't think anyone else would have been able to do. After the Saurian Union was born the next year, Sandalwood was elected as the nation's first prime minister, and, not so surprisingly, he became the leader, which I suppose is very similar to what we were just hearing about him being the person leading that transition. Without him, I'm not sure who the leader might have been, but that void, potential void at least, might have made it more difficult to rebound after that revolution. It was not his intent to run for this office, but the people chose him anyway. He led our fledgling nation through its nascent years. One of his allies in all this was the imp, Tizo, with whom he traveled all across the downside. Okay, so maybe further reason to believe that freeing Tizo was a good idea? I know, I suspect that was probably a little bit of an unusual play, in that I would think that, given the choice, Tizo might be someone that other people might have chosen not to free, because, he's just an imp, he doesn't even talk, but I think having listened closely to, again, his family and his bloodline, it seemed like there was some potential there that I saw. So I'm glad to see that there was some reason to, for that to be a good idea. Sandalwood often cited Tizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future. Such was the creature's spirit. As Volfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, he remained ever steadfast about 2 things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus. The freedom that the people had achieved. It was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. Yes and no. Mostly no. I mean, mostly yes. Wait, what? Second point was that he had... Hold on, now I'm twisting myself into knots about double negatives. You had a lot to do with the outcome. That's what I'm trying to say. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings, who had stood with him, each in turn, by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, on his birthday, people of the Saurian Union presented to him a monument depicting him and the Nightwings, as imagined in their pride. It has since ensured that those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles. Right, there's Sandalwood. I think now we turn to the three people who may have remained in the downside. I hope not. I hope they found a way into the Commonwealth, but we'll see. Starting with one of the three people who we met in our first encounter, Rookie. As it dawned on Rookie Greentail, the rites had truly ended, and that he would never again return to the Commonwealth. See, this gets me. I don't know. He took it rather well, all things considered. If anything, he felt a burden lifted from him, as the need for constant travel on a deadline was no longer ever present. Yeah, I mean, that's not like that's a huge deal, I guess, but sure. Small victories. I mean, hard to be all that positive given how apparently he did not make it to the Commonwealth. Even still, he had a family to support back on the other side, and struggled to find means of helping them, despite the great expanse that stood between them. Wait, and struggled to find means of helping them? Despite the great expanse? Not clear to me if this means that he was successful in helping them, or was not successful in helping them. As it turned out, his quest for freedom helped build strong connections with some future business partners, and the birth of the Saurian Union opened new doors, even where he was. I mean, open new doors. I would love if this was actually, literally true, in that you could actually go to the Commonwealth now, but it's looking like that may be wishful thinking. Before long, he had a real business going, created in partnership with Falcon Ron and the Bog Dwellers of Big Bertrude's. Wow. It was not the exact life of luxury he always dreamed about, but he managed to get by, and his family's debts were all repaid. And that's true, we did settle his score with Barker. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. So that hurts. I was really thinking that if we were successful with the plan, sure, we might overthrow the Commonwealth and all that, but the primary goal, at least in my mind, was to make everyone free from the downside. And at least based on that description with Rookie, it seems like that was not necessarily the case. Alright, Tay would be next. Long after the rites had ended, Tay admitted that she knew well before the fact that she would not be going home again. At least, she had a very strong feeling. She ended up not minding very much, because she had little to return to in the Commonwealth. Her sense of home had changed. I mean, to be brutally honest, that is partially the reason why I was never really considering liberating Tay. If we had the ability to free one more person, it probably would have been either Bertrude or Rookie. Not necessarily, Shirku. Rookie, of course, was with us for much longer, and we had a much closer tie to him, but if we were looking for maximizing the probability of our plan succeeding, then we probably would have chosen Bertrude, but Tay never really looked to be rising to the top of our list because it was never all that clear to me what her tie to the Commonwealth was and how that might play out if we were to free her. She took to wandering from one celestial landmark to the next, ever paying homage to the 8 scribes, who she believed had influenced all that transpired. She was no stranger to traveling alone, but was always happy to have company.
Through it all, she would wonder how her little friend Tizo had fared. While they were divided now by a great distance, he always remained in her heart. Though they could not see each other any longer, Faye often thought about Jodario and spoke to her as though she were there. Faye tried never to make a decision without first consulting her idea of what Miss Jodario might say. Whether she felt genuine doubt, which was not very often, she sought out the reader of the Nightwings. If there was anyone whom she trusted as much as the scribes, it was him. One day, she encountered one of her former adversaries, one called Almer Oldheart, who had served the Faith. She remembered him much more than he did her, though only just at first. Their shared experience in the rites, and their different points of view about the scribes, formed the basis of what grew to be a long-lasting relationship. Tay always was devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Her gentle manner of unwavering conviction often helped them brave life in the downside, both with courage and with grace. So Tay, likewise, remained in the downside, but thankfully was able to continue a friendship with Almer and... Wait, Almer's father, right? Not the son? But we didn't hear anything about the son. It seemed like there was more back and forth between Tay and son, but maybe we'll hear more about that soon. But anyways, we have Bertrude as the last member of the Nightwings. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude is a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There, she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away, almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, I'm not sure we knew that, perhaps then, even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she had admired now for decades. Though they were very far apart now, she sought out news as to his whereabouts and found his actions in the Saurian Union a rare source of inspiration. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her work. Whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans, the work brought her a sense of purpose, she would say. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. Okay, glad to hear that Bertrude took that pretty well, staying in the downside. It did seem as though throughout our journey that she was relatively comfortable with that possibility. Okay, so now we've gone through all the Nightwings. I think next, maybe Sandra? After the cycle of the rice ceased turning, records of what happened, the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings, who remained in the downside, continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyonder Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparitions of Sandra the Unseen. One possibility is that when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyonder Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. Okay, I didn't remember that was ultimately where we found the Beyonder Crystal, was lone minstrel gave it to us. But I think we know the truth here. He ended up taking the Beyonder Crystal. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyonder Crystal even existed, or rather, that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fever dream. The bog dwellers of the southern bogs offer still another explanation,
for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object in which the Sisters of the Arch had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment could have been expired along with the light of the stars. Well, Sandra sort of spoke about that a little bit. She said that the other Beyonders might have had something like that happen to them, but that she would be stuck there for all of eternity. That supposedly her trap, her imprisonment was stronger than the other Beyonders. What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant that they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fates of Sandra and Beyonder Crystal remain unknown. Yet those exiles of the Nightwings who claim to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence, or perhaps a little fear. Whoa! Can you believe this, reader? Honestly? Sandra has appeared before you, as well as you can see. They are so far from the mark with all this nonsense, and want to laugh. In fact, here goes. She laughs. She's referring to the account of her. You sense she does not care for it. Well, let them gossip all they like. I merely wish they would mention you at least in passing, when next they are at it. Though they shall never know even the half of it, shall they? Sandra seems irritated by the incomplete account of what happened to her. Reassure her, the account was relatively flattering, despite a lack of detail. Could have been worse. Humor her, perhaps making some light of the situation will make Sandra feel better, or remain silent. Sometimes Sandra just needs a little time to vent. She values that you listen. I think we can reassure her. You suggest to Sandra that the account of what occurred to her was really not that bad, and if you liked aspects of it. You are too much diplomatic. You know that? Much too diplomatic. You know what I mean. You can tell she is unswayed, and yet her grin remains intact. She appreciates the gesture. Anyway, let us keep going, lovely reader. We know the truth of it. That is what matters. She fades into the Beyonder Crystal for now, and you tuck it away, safe. Okay. There's Sandra. I think next we ought to do the Lone Minstrel, who spent a lot of time with us and was, much like Volfred, awfully mysterious, so I'm curious as to what happened with him. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, might be both of them collectively? The Lone Minstrel bade the remaining Nightwings take the Black Wagon and seek their fortunes elsewhere in the downside. Their parting was heartfelt, but brief. He remained there at the summit of Mount Elodial with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycle. Neither Tariq nor Celeste were ever seen again. We know all of this now through song attributed to them. Some claim these songs originated in the caverns of the Saurian Union and merely were imbued with the weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from the downside corroborated each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggests these minstrels were heralds of the scribes. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed the world we know and rejoined their patrons. That seemed like that might have been the case, that they were pretty closely tied to the scribes in one way or another. I mean, the liberation rites, of course, were the key component, the key thing that the scribes oversaw, and they were so closely involved in that process that seemed likely, and also the fact that we were never really clear as to just how old the two of them were. They seemed to suggest that they knew a lot about the things that had happened long ago, and it wasn't always 100% clear as to whether that was because they were there to experience it themselves, or if they just heard from other people. One of their famous songs describes another, simpler outcome, that the two gave up their duties to the rites in favor of a life that they could share together. And also there their relationship with one another wasn't totally clear. I mean, obviously they had a professional relationship with one another and that they had a similar job, but at times it seemed like there might have been something more there. Certainly, at the very least, that they knew each other very well, but it wasn't always clear if they were ever a couple. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our time. Two of them together? Sure, we'll do Falcon Ron now. With the rites drawn to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. What about his music? He doesn't have any music. Yet, as sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave it to one of his remaining trinkets. Wait, Ron gave it to one of his remaining trinkets? Which could not be so. Gave a message. Okay. Don't fully follow there. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth in newly minted coinage from the Saurian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp then and there. Though his trade remained a gray area from a legal standpoint in the Saurian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with both Rookie Greentail, whose own business had expanded, as well as with Big Bertrude's, forming a sizable trade conglomerate. Their goods are still known for their superior quality, though Falcon Ron assumes no liability for any side effects. Of course he doesn't. Okay, now, of all the people we see here, if we were to go in reverse order, it would be Lendl first, or well, I mean, in the order in which we saw them. After the final liberation rite, Lendl refused to believe that the rites had truly ended. He would sit through night after consecutive night, staring into the blackness of the sky, awaiting any kind of sign that he might gain another chance at freedom. No such sign ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority once liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Lendl dismissed them as weak fools. He insisted, rather forcefully, that any evening now, the stars would shine for him again, and mark the way toward his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The others in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that, the exile known as Lendl the Liar, never seen again. However, there have since been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Lendl's cruel countenance, suggesting he yet lives. Yikes. So, I mean, appears as though humans, if left in the downside for long, can still become demons, and that very likely was the case with Lendl. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Okay, next, I believe, was the fate. So these two. Oh, they do come together. Okay. As the cycle of the rites drew to a close, it grew evident that a chance of freedom from the downside had forever slipped from Dalbert and Almer Oldheart's grasp. Thus, they and the exiles of the Fate returned to Jomir Valley. There, they struggled to get by, as exiles of the downside tend to do. Some time after the rites had ended, the Oldhearts at last heard the news that the Commonwealth had fallen. This was well after the fact, of course, but it brought old Dalbert great joy. Despite his forthright manner, he had no love for the nation that cast him down, along with his son. Dalbert Oldheart passed peacefully in his sleep before the next new moon. Oh, may he rest in peace. In his final days, he implored his son to undertake a pilgrimage to the scribes. Almer never shared his father's view of the scribes, but respected Dalbert's wishes, and so, after a period of mourning, Almer began a new journey. One day during his travels,
he ran almost headlong into another exile, paying homage at the Spring of Jomir. He was stunned to find that this was none other than the one he knew as Tay from their days as adversaries in the rites. Tay was overjoyed to see him, though Ulmer was unable to bring himself to understand why. Eventually, of course, he did, and they remained together, growing ever more accustomed to their new lives in the downside. Oh, I'm glad. Okay, so they seem to have at least the first kindling of a potential companionship that we saw in our most recent rite with them, and with them both being stuck in the downside, I suppose that's a nice outcome for them. Not a day went by that Ulmer Oldheart did not think about his father, and give thanks to him, and speak to him at morning and at night. Would the stars yet shone, for surely Dalberts would be there among them, smiling down at his son, watching over him. Oh. Okay, next, I believe, was Barker. Barker Ashpaws never had much interest in returning to the Commonwealth, for he always found its bylaws to be stifling. So when the rites ended, he did not care at first. He soon grew very bored. The rites had given his life a certain sense of structure he had always needed. He missed the raw anticipation of it all. He decided to continue conducting the rites for the thrill of it. He bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. His packmates, the dissidents, proved more than happy to participate, and thus they ran against each other back in Jomir Valley. Gradually, other exiles familiar with the rites, as well as those who had not heard of it at all, started to take an interest. They ended up giving Barker Ashpaws some healthy competition. In time, he forgot all about his old feud with Ruby Greentail, his family. For his part, Greentail stayed well clear of him. It's true, both of them remained in the downside, so that is, I mean, we did sort things out between the two of them, but I suppose that could have gone much worse had we not done that, and had they both remained in the same area. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpaws, who had led such a directionless existence to that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exile of his time, or more, was oft debated by those who watched him work. Okay, that's fitting, I suppose, and then I think next was the Withdrawn. After the cycle of the rites had ceased, Witch Udmilde returned to the Flagging Hands region, where she sealed herself within the Pit of Malik. There, even her fellow exiles of the Withdrawn allegedly grew unnerved after a time, and left her to her vile work. Sometime later, the Pit of Malik erupted into flame. So intense was the conflagration that it should have been all the way from that it could be seen all the way from Jomir Valley. Arson was suspected, though the cause was never verified, and many bog dwellers in the region were forced to flee. A tempest blowing from the north finally quenched the flames. When at last the ashes settled and the grounds had cooled, the site of the fire was scarred beyond recognition. No trace of Witch of Mildy could be found. As for the contents of the Pit of Malik, well, which notably included a profane object thought to be the remains of the Slosh, all of it was gone as well. Okay, maybe some of that is for the best. Back in the Saurian Union, the Mildy's repeated threats of the return of Yislak were thoroughly investigated, and no credence was found to any of her claims. That might have had something to do with how we convinced her that he was not coming back. Okay, next, I believe, would be Sir Deluge. All his life, Sir Deluge had fled from one danger only to find himself facing another. He had escaped the war-torn waters of the Sea Dominion. He had escaped the blood border of the Commonwealth, and now he had escaped the rites. After the rites had ended, many exiles wrapped up in the ancient test were crestfallen, as their last chances to return to their homes vanished, along with the stars above. But Deluge did not mind, for this outcome meant that, at last, there was no burden of responsibility weighing down on him. while most of his fellow exiles of the Pyre Hearts yet longed for the waters of the Sea Dominion. Driven as ever by their impulses toward conflict, Deluge settled down. With him remained one of his companions, one Lady Seagrass, who had taken a liking to him for some reason. Reportedly, they disappeared into the waters of Worm Gulf, which may begin to explain the significant increase in worm population observed in the vicinity. Okay. Moving on. Okay, next would be Manly and the Chastity. When Manly Tinderstoff realized the rites had ended, and that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth through his ancient means, he was outraged. He cursed the scribes, spewing forth such a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of his high status and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused all his energies on attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via messenger inn, and used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using an elaborate pulley system. He attempted to retrofit a flying black wagon with superior propulsion. He tried an imp raft, a hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There was only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. I mean, if there was any hope of anyone else making it to the Commonwealth afterward, then I suppose Manly's failures are indicative of the roadblocks that they would have faced as well. So it seems as though those still in the downside are well and truly stuck in the downside. Tinderstoff bankrupted his family in these vain attempts. At last, such was his shame that he retreated to the teeming woods of Black Basin, the Cinder Room. And I think this is where we originally met Wolfred, if I remember correctly. Not sure we ever went back there. There, he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the Chastity who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or the latest news from the other side. There's Manly, and, I suppose a fitting end for him as well. After, well, I guess, I don't want to say valiant attempt, but, an attempt to make it back. Then we have Ignarius. Once it became clear to Ignarius that the rites were drawing to a close, he knew that it was time for him and the Tempers to call it quits. But first, he and the Tempers decided to celebrate, and that they did for many, many nights. The revelry did eventually subside. The exiles parted amicably and went their separate ways. He roamed the downside, then searching for some meaning in his life, sometimes taking odd jobs requiring his brute strength. He never remained alone for very long, and took on many lovers in his time. However, he sometimes thought about the one he had called Curly Horns, and what became of her. Oh, is he referring to Jodariel? We never really got a great sense as to what the history between the two of them was, because the first time they met, immediately afterwards, we freed Jodariel, so we didn't get to see if there was more to that. Though his glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rites had long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated. It's not much that we hear about him, and last but not least, I think it is fitting that we conclude with Orlek. After the Shimmer Pool closed for what would be the last time, Orlek looked around him in the flickering light of the Nightwing's still burning pyre. He then turned to the Fall of Solium and looked up toward the black, starless sky. Cursed the 8 scribes then, one after the other. After that, he strode forward toward the waters coursing on the side of Mount Elodium, and without hesitating, cast himself down into the water, like the ones that would have normally sent him up to the Commonwealth, or some other water. Orlek's body was never recovered. Wow. So, he basically decided that that was enough. The drop from Mount Elodium does not appear survivable, though
Orlek did survive it once before, that is true. I mean, I still feel as though there was a case to be made that Orlek was still allowed to ascend, to become liberated, make it back to the Commonwealth, because he did earn his freedom, and it's not like, I know someone did try to take that freedom from him instead of him, but they weren't successful with that. So I would think that he should have been able to, at any point in time, upon surviving, make his way back to the top of Mount Elodial and set himself free, because he had already earned that. That time, however, he was filled with fury. Such was the betrayal he had suffered when his fellow exile claimed his rightful freedom. This time, Orlek was filled with nothingness and chose to leave the downside in the one way he still knew he could. The other Nightwings were witness to this, never forgot what they saw. That is Grim. That is the last one. There's one more account Warrants mentioned. The Nightwings conducted the rites under the guidance of a reader. Little is known of him. However, some accounts of him begin to paint a picture. We know he was of common birth, always directionless, and prone to misremembering at times. What? What are you referring to? The journey to the downside left him close to death. It was then that the Nightwings found him. They brought him from the brink, showed them the path. He pressed onward with the others. He had made a vow to help his friends be free. Thus did the cycle of the rites commence its final turns. When the final rite arrived, the reader's freedom was at stake. In the end, however, he remained in exile. From that point on, accounts of him diverge. It is said the voice which troubled him he never heard again. Some say he helped improve the lives of the other downside exiles. Whether that is true, only he knows. Someday, perhaps, that reader's own star shall emerge. Then shall pierce the dark night, all its brilliant glory. Till such a time, and ever after, all of us, thanks.
Their journey began on a barren waste where the reader arrived, afraid and alone. When he arrived, the book of rites awakened the Nightwings and ignited the flame. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in our brain till the end. We sing of the last of the Nightwings who, having broken the cycle, shall live on in song. Headwind prevailed and strode the path that his heart laid before him. He has found his way home. Captain Joe Dariel, mother to many a foundling, she has found her way home. Rookie Greentail, small in size but vast in commitment, he remained to the end.
touched girl feels the scribes in the heart of the downside. She remained to the end.
Tizo prevailed, first of his lowly kind, to ascend from the downside. He has found a new home. Sir Gilman the Bold, ever in his quest, finding honor and glory, he has found his way home. Pamith the Thane, having pleased the scribe, seeking only forgiveness, she has found her way home. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Bound together, spirits tether, strands unbroken, scribes awoken. Wolfred prevailed as the night wings guide, having led them to glory. He has found his way home.
The bog dweller Bertrude kept their foes at bay with her finest enchantments. She remained till the end. The reader at last made the night wings whole, having bound them together. He remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. They follow the stars, bound together, strands in a braid till the end. Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find our way home. We shall